Okay, so Australia's cybersecurity landscape has just gone through a massive shakeup. There's a brand new rule on the books, and for thousands of businesses, it introduces this intense ticking clock that starts the second a ransom gets paid. So the big question is your business actually ready for what happens next?
For years, the whole decision to pay a ransom was this private, gut-wrenching choice. A business gets hit, you pay the cyber criminals, you cross your fingers and hope you get your data back, and then you just try to quietly move on. Well, as of 2025, that's not the end of the story anymore, not even close. In fact, for a lot of businesses, paying that ransom is now just the beginning of a whole new process. So, what's changed? Well, the game has been completely reset, all thanks to the Cybersecurity Act of 2024. This isn't just some small tweak. It's part of a huge national strategy, and it brings in a new and totally non-negotiable duty for any business that finds itself paying off a cybercriminal. At the very heart of this new law is something called the Ransomware Payment Report. And, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a compulsory report that you have to file with the government's top cyber agency, the ASD, anytime you make a payment to an attacker. And let's be clear, this is not a suggestion. It's a legal requirement. The whole point is to give the government a national intelligence picture so they can spot attack trends, track where the money's going, and hopefully start to disrupt these criminal groups.
And here is the absolute kicker. You don't get a month, or a week, or even 4 days to sort this out. The moment a payment is officially made, a 72-hour clock starts ticking. That is your entire window to get all the required information together and get that report filed. The pressure is on big time.
So let's have a quick look at the rollout, because the timing is key. The rules officially kicked in on May 30th, 2025. Now, through the end of that year, the government says it's taking an education-first approach. But, and this is important, don't get too comfortable. Come January 1st, 2026, active enforcement begins. The single most important thing to get your head around is that the 72-hour duty to report, it applies right now.
Okay, so we've talked about the rule, we've looked at the timeline. The big question bouncing around your head right now is probably, does this actually apply to my business? Let's work that out.
The official term the legislation uses is covered entity. That's who has to report. So how do you know if you're one of them? Well, it really comes down to two main tests.
The first, and honestly the most important number to burn into your memory, is this one, $3 million. We're talking about your annual business turnover. If your business hits that number or goes above it, then you are almost certainly on the hook. So let's just break down that dividing line nice and clearly. On one side, you've got any business with that $3 million plus turnover. And you've also got entities that run critical infrastructure, think energy grids, water supplies, that kind of thing. On the other side of the line, government bodies and most not-for-profits are exempt. The takeaway here is pretty straightforward. If you're a commercial business of a certain size, you absolutely need to be paying attention to this.
All right, so let's say you're a covered entity, and the worst happens. An attack hits, a payment is made. What exactly do you need to do inside that incredibly tight 72-hour window?
You can really break it down into 3 core steps. First, you've got the trigger. A payment is made, and that could be you paying directly or maybe an insurance company paying for you. Second comes the scramble. You have to immediately start pulling together a very specific list of information. And third, the submission, getting all that info to the ASD before that 72-hour clock hits zero.
And we're not just talking about a vague summary here. The information they need is incredibly detailed. The ASD wants your ABN, a full timeline of the attack, exactly what systems were hit, the specific malware used, all the details of the demand and the final payment, and they even want a summary of all your chats with the criminals. That is a ton of data to pull together when you're already under extreme pressure.
Thankfully, the how part is pretty straightforward. All of this information gets filed through one single secure online portal. It's on the Australian Cybersecurity Centre's website. So, no mailing in forms or trying to figure out the right email address. There is one central spot to get it done.
So what happens if you don't report? On the flip side, what's the incentive to actually do it? Well, the law is pretty smart. It's designed with both a stick and a carrot to get businesses to comply.
Let's start with the stick. If you fail to report a payment within that 72-hour window, that's a civil penalty offense, and it can lead to fines of up to 60 penalty units, which works out to be several $1,000s. Now, that might not sound like a company-ending amount, but it's per offense, and it's a regulatory breach you really don't want on your record.
Okay, now for the carrot. And honestly, this is the most important part to understand. The information you put in your report is legally protected. Think of it like a plane's black box recorder. Its only purpose for intelligence gathering, to help the authorities understand these threats and fight back. It cannot be turned around and used as evidence against you in court. This protection is absolutely vital because it encourages everyone to be honest and report quickly, without that fear of accidentally incriminating themselves.
Okay, so we've covered the what, the why, and the who. Now for the final, and I'd say most important piece of the puzzle: what can you actually do to get your business ready for this right now?
Here is your action plan, plain and simple. First, as soon as you can, open up your existing incident response playbook and add a whole new section that spells out this 72-hour reporting duty. Second, don't wait for a crisis to decide who's in charge. Assign a specific person or a small team with the responsibility for gathering the data and filing the report. And third, you have to practice. Run a drill, a tabletop exercise, whatever you want to call it, and see if you can actually pull all that required information together and be ready to submit it within 3 days.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't some theoretical exercise anymore. The law is in place. The clock is very, very real. So the only question left to ask is, when an attack eventually happens, will your business be ready to hit start?